Ready.
All right. Excited to introduce our next guest, reoccurring guest, friend of the show, friend of ours, national championship winning coach, Jay Johnson. Coach, I appreciate you coming on the show, fresh off of your
book tour.
A book signing. What book are we promoting, or were you signing today?
Yeah, it was good to see you guys.
Good to see you too,
Coach. Secondly,
Little hardware
championship.
back there.
The championship trophies look great behind
A
you.
little new hardware in the background, Coach.
Looks great behind you.
yeah. Looking at that, like the national championship one's a lot cooler than the other ones when you get to the World Series and you don't win it. So.
Yeah, no doubt.
No doubt. No, it was good. Somebody made this book. It's unbelievable. Photos from the entire season. Kind of tells the story of our team, and so they were selling them at Barnes & Noble, and Tiger fans showed out as usual.
That.
It was awesome.
I love that. Actually, Barnes & Noble is right down the street from us. I think I'm going to walk down there after this and maybe purchase me one of those picture books that you're talking about.
There you go.
I don't like to read. I like to
nice
read. I like to read. I like to see the pictures in there. It makes it a lot easier.
There's pop-up pictures that helps more.
It's definitely visual learner friendly.
Perfect. That's right. That's right
down my alley right there.
Right up my alley. Coach, it's been a little minute. Obviously, y'all right in the middle of fall practice. Football season was going on. I want to give you all a little bit of a break. Now that fall's over with, you've gotten to see a lot of these freshmen start to develop a little bit. And within the fall, you have a little bit of a gap, and then you start practice back up, or full team practice back up in January. What was your message, and what were you telling these guys? Like, hey, listen, we had a great fall, obviously, whatever the message is there. But, hey, in between between Thanksgiving and when you come back to school, it's a big gap. What was the message telling these guys, because they have to keep their workouts up and keep training and do these things? Is there something specifically you tell these guys, or you try to emphasize on these guys when you go through a big break like this?
Yeah, super important. I like to break the year down into like 9 innings. And when you're at this phase, you're about the 3rd or the 4th inning. And it's the one phase where we don't have a lot of say or control with the players and what they can do. What we really try to do is to leave no gray area, no doubt of what we're looking for out of them, where they're at as a player now, where we believe they can contribute, what we need them to do to be the best team we possibly can be, and then have the workout program structured around all of those things. So there's been a lot of communication with myself and the position players, and then myself and Coach Yeski and the pitchers. Feel like we're in a good spot. Feel like guys are very motivated to tackle what's in front of them, what we laid out in front of them based on what we saw in the fall. But it's a super important time. Over the course of my career, I've seen players make massive jumps during this time, and some fall back, and it takes them a little longer to get going. But we have a good group of guys that I think have an understanding of how important this is, and I'm not overly concerned about them doing the things that they need to do right now.
Coach, Kendall Rogers, put out an article. He came out and he interviewed with you, and he scouted. He came to the Purple and Gold World Series and kind of scouted the team in the fall. Obviously, the team in the fall is not going to look the same as the team at the end of the season, right? There's a lot more development to be had. He came out and wrote an article and talked about what he saw, and he said if the lineup basically laid out in a lineup. If the lineup were to be today, to happen today, this is what it would be. And I think one guy in the lineup that kind of shocked a lot of people was Jake Brown. Potentially start being in the starting lineup in the outfield as a true freshman. Can you speak a little bit about him? What has he done throughout the fall to give you that confidence in him right now, and the things that he needs to continue to do to continue to hold that spot and obviously continue to develop?
Yeah, I'm really excited about Jake. He's got great makeup, great character. He's a terrific athlete, great pitcher as well. And just kind of looking at our team, the fall, it's kind of a wide open thing, especially coming off a year like last year where, we're probably replacing, at least at the end, 6 guys that were in the lineup on a daily basis. The benefit that we have is we have a lot of guys back that did contribute to that championship. When you look at Jared Jones had 160 at-bats, Paxton Kling close to 100 at-bats, Josh Pearson 150 at-bats, so Hayden Travinsky, Milazzo, So those guys weren't necessarily at the front, but they played a lot. And, but there's some open competition. And Jake did a nice job of coming in, and he's super competitive. He's super confident. He's a great athlete, can really run. We need it, and some left-handed hitting to kind of step up to give us that left-right balance that I love to have in our order. And he's done a good job of that. And I think probably the thing that impressed me the most is I'm very much paying attention to who handles the top end pitching well.
Yeah.
And he did a really good job of that, because you guys know as high level players, good teams will crush, mediocre pitching, as they should. But if you want to be an elite team, you got to be good against, the best guys. And I definitely see the ability, and I see the competitiveness in his at bats. That he'll be able to do that, and super excited about him and the contribution he can make.
Coach, it's always good to talk ball with you. I'm glad you kind of just mentioned about the guys that left, the guys that were big contributors to the team last year. Now, like you said, it's the third or fourth inning. It's pretty early on still, right? And real adversity hasn't set in, and real challenges haven't really set in. But at this moment right now, of guys that are returners from last year, who are you seeing that's stepping up as far as being a leader and being able to kind of take some of those leadership roles that were, I guess, that are vacant, if you really will, that guys have kind of moved on from, and you need, younger guys who are now elder statesmen to kind of step into and kind of be voices and leaders of the squad?
Yeah, we had 4 things that were super important last year that we were identified, like this has to happen for this to go the way we want it to go. And player leadership was one of those 4 things. And it was as good as I've ever seen when you talk about Paul Skeens, obviously, Dylan Cruz, Gavin Dugas, Cade Beloso. And what that did is it presented a really good model for our guys of what that actually looked like, of, confronting and demanding the best out of everybody on an everyday basis, and really raising the standard, or what we called playing to a standard that was above winning. And we have some returning players that understood the value of that and are really, really trying to do a good job. I think, having Alex Milazzo and Hayden Travinsky in their 5th year and playing the catching position, and they both were massive contributors last year, that's a really, really good starting point. And they obviously had great examples from some of those guys, that I mentioned. So they're probably at the front, but it doesn't have to be a returning player thing. Like,
right.
Michael Brath's done a really nice job in the infield. He's obviously had 2 years of a lot of playing time, in the SEC, and, has a little bit of a field general mentality to him. So that's been good. On the pitching side of it, Thatcher Hurd, obviously. Will Helmers, who's a 4th-year player, is a great leader for us, and, does a really, really good job there. And there's other guys that do it in different ways.
Yep.
Josh Pearson, by example. Tommy, obviously, is one of the best players in the country, and going to be at the forefront of this thing when he's healthy. Has taken on a lot of that as well. And, guys like Dylan and Gavin, kind of charged him with, paying it forward. So I'm really pleased with that so far. And I think it's only going to get better, as we continue to develop as a team and go through things as a team.
How is Tommy White's recovery coming along? How is his, the progression? Is he getting closer? I know you're probably not going to talk too much about it, but are you happy with the progression he's made?
Yeah, he's chomping at the bit.
Yeah, I'm sure.
He's to full batting practice right now at 100% intensity with swings, and just popped his head in my office and said, "Coach, I was smashing balls today."
I have no doubt in my mind he was smashing balls, and it's probably smashing the scoreboard too. I have no doubt.
It is December 6th, I believe. So full speed swing, running. We're well into the running progression, which is leading us into the individual defense part of it. And then he'll begin his throwing program on December 19th, which gives him a good 9 weeks before the season. So I'm pretty confident we're going to be in a good spot. And, again, hats off to him for playing basically a full season at definitely nowhere near 100%, and performing the way that he did was remarkable. And one of the biggest reasons we won the national championship.
Kind of scary to see what's going to happen when he actually feels 100%. But looking forward to that. I'm excited to see that. You mentioned a bunch of guys that are coming back that had experience that may not have been starters for the entire season, right? One of those guys is Jared Jones. We spoke a little bit earlier in the fall about some of the things that y'all are trying to tweak and work on with him at the plate, right? Obviously, he had some swing and miss last year and trying to dial that back. And he was right in the middle of the fall, right? And when you start learning something new, it takes a little time. And I think, and we've talked about on the show, fall is the perfect time to do it because you can fail without consequence in a sense. And you can work on some of these things. How have those tweaks been? Has he progressed? Has he looked better? Has he made that adjustment? Has it start to feel better for him as the fall has gone on?
Yeah, for sure. I thought he ended in a really good spot. I think I tried to get him a ton of at-bats in the 2 outside scrimmages over at McNeese and against Louisiana Lafayette. And I want to say in 6 at-bats, he hit 5 balls over 100 miles an hour at McNeese. Really, really good at lining the barrel up, recognizing pitches, all of those types of things. But the great thing about Jared is, baseball's his deal. Like, this is what he wants to be good at. So not afraid to be coached, not afraid to put in the work. And Jamie Tutko, our director of analytics, who's a huge part of our success and program, itemized some statistical things with him about pitch selection and pitches seen per at bat. And we were able to take it a step further from an approach standpoint. And from that point, let's say the last 4 weeks of fall, he was productive in the way that we want him to be productive and very close to his capability. So that was really exciting. Did a good job defensively at first base. So really excited about Jared and really pleased, on a team of that caliber last year, we were able to get him as much playing time experience and at-bats. I think that will really benefit him this year.
Coach, we spoke earlier about earlier in the fall about the pitching staff and your excitement to see what they're able to do this year. Now, a lot of people don't understand a lot of what happened last year, or whatever you want to make, however you want to call it, happened is because guys were asked to step up in positions that they were not necessarily slated to be in as the season started. So when I say excitement on the new year, it has a lot to do with these guys getting a chance to understand the role that they're in. And also there's some incoming kids as well. What have you learned from the start of the fall to right now about that pitching staff that maybe you didn't know, and what excites you the most about them?
Yeah, I just think the number of guys that are going to make a positive contribution, I think you start with strikes. The whole game is about balls and strikes, and they really filled up the zone and attacked the zone. And feel good about some guys at the front of it that can really give us some length. And I believe there's more than 3, so it'll be a good depth, as you get into a 5-game regional or Omaha type situation, or just going through a 5-game week during the season, or a battle in an SEC series. So really feel good about the depth of it. Really feel good about the strikes piece. I think there's a lot of variety. I think it's important to have different looks for hitters, in terms of, types of fastballs, out pitches, be curveball, slider, changeup, different type of arm angles, and then just pure stuff. We're in a really, really good place. And, they were way ahead of the position players the first 2 or 3 weeks, which is great. You guys know how that is.
Yeah.
If you're beating your own pitch around in inter squads,
usually a key.
You definitely have a ceiling as a team. But really pleased with a lot of those guys. But I'd say probably the strikes and the depth. It didn't, for some of our hitters, and particularly some of our young hitters, it was just like there was no let up. It wasn't good. We get to Sunday in inter squads, and it's
Another left-hander.
you're Johnson throwing up there at 97 miles an hour, and
Aiden Moffett touching 98, and people may not even know his name.
Yeah, exactly. So it's it was good, and I really think the quality of pitching we had early last year, before some of those guys went down, like that really helped our offense too. Like we saw what we were going to see during the season, and I felt like that helped prepare our hitters. And I feel the same way going into this year. And, right now they're all healthy, which is great, except the couple guys that are returned from on surgery last year. And I think we're in a good place. Coach Yeski's come in and done a really good job with them.
It's great because, we talk about it a lot, and there's, everyone would love to see the unexpected Gavin Guidry entrance to a season, if you will. But that is so far and few, and that doesn't happen much. So to see kind of the health and where these guys are and the opportunity that they have ahead of them, that's kind of always what you want to see in these situations.
No doubt. And speaking of Gavin Guidry, right? So Gavin obviously came in as a dual guy, came shortstop, then was unexpectedly thrown into the closer role, at a necessity, and he handled it like an absolute rock star, right? He was one of the main reasons why y'all were able to close games out and pitched in some really big moments. Seems like he's going to be in that role, maybe not necessarily just the close role, but that, big spot guy situation role. And, how has his development been with, having a full year of preparing for that? Because I don't think people realize what he did last year is extremely difficult. Like, he didn't train to do that. Like, he was hitting in the fall, and he was not throwing bullpens like he was supposed to pitch, and he handled it really well. Has his velocity upticked? I feel like he's got a lot in there in the tank. He's going to get stronger. How has that progression been for him?
Yeah, it's been really good. I think the thing about Gavin, that I always come back to is he's a terrific competitor. He thrives on the situation, and not everybody's like that. And he's also a great athlete, which allowed him to come in midstream, not a lot of training or, scripted type deal, moving into last year and come in and execute at a high level. Well, because we did it that way, we were a little slower with what we were doing for him with his throwing program. He actually didn't pitch at all in any scrimmages or anything like that because I wanted him to have a little extra time off from what we asked him to do last year, kind of going from cold turkey for 6 months. So what we're doing is he's in the midst of throwing intensely right now, and he's just going to kind of keep going into the season. And it's been good. Him and Coach Yeski have some things relative to his delivery, how he moves. We're toying with some things as far as some deception, but his arm is in a really, really good place right now. Obviously has the out pitches. And, I think going back to the staff, and Gavin really fits this, as I was going through individual meetings with the pitchers, just the concept of I really trust you, came up a lot when you're talking about Gavin, when you're talking about Nate Ackenhausen, when you're talking about Griffin Herring. Those guys, kind of got overshadowed a little bit because of, Paul, and rightfully so last year with what he did and Ty. But, that's just key pieces. You normally don't win a championship and have that many guys back, and then to have Thatcher, be probably the next best pitcher in the country for the last 5 weeks of the season. Right. To Paul, returning, and then adding, Luke Holman and Gage Jump and Justin Lohr and Cameron Johnson and Kate Anderson.
Keep going. Keep going.
Right.
And then you mentioned Aiden Moffitt, and you mentioned DJ Primo. They didn't pitch for us last year, and these guys are going to be stars. They're going to really pitch over the next 2 years, and they're going to be good draft picks in 2025. So really excited. We had to be super intentional, hit the ground running from a recruiting standpoint on the pitching side of it when we got here. And it's fun to see kind of how that part of it's come together.
You spoke about Nate Yeski. Coach Yeski came in. You have a lot of experience with him. Obviously, y'all coached together at Arizona. He was at Texas A&M. He comes in and takes over the reins as the pitching coach here. What are some of the things, obviously everybody's got their own philosophy. There's more than one way to skin a cat, but the familiarity with you and him, and his process and the way he kind of interprets the pitching position and the pitching staff and the rotation. How has that transition been for him, and how have you seen the players kind of respond to him in a positive way with the way he kind of approaches the pitching?
Yeah, it's been nothing but on a personal standpoint, with the amount of staff turnover that we've had, knowing what we're going to get in that regard, super, super important. Super, super important. And very thankful that Coach Itzke's here. He's incredibly intelligent. He communicates at a really, really high level. And what's good about that is it's all things that if the pitcher takes and applies to their preparation and into the game, they're going to elevate themselves. And so knowing what we're getting from a pitch calling standpoint, from bullpen structure, mental game standpoint, is outstanding with the mental game. We have a lot of guys that are really well positioned to take advantage of what he brings to the table. So it's a perfect match in that regard.
Coach, can you talk about Josh taking on this new role and moving into the second base position, and kind of how that transition has been for him, and how's he doing with it?
Tell you what, if that I couldn't do it. So that's
I'm left-handed, so I could.
More power to him, because that's hard to do, and
yes,
it seems like he's gained your confidence at that position.
Yeah, I love Josh. It's 2 years of significant amount of at-bats and positive contribution to winning. And, my job is always to try to accelerate or enhance what we have at our disposal to make the best team that we possibly can. And so just kind of looking around and not trying to, build a fence on, what we can or can do or don't have or do have. I just hey, let's give this a shot. And, he's done a great job. He's a competitor. He's got a slow heartbeat. And, it's closer than 87 days, but kind of as we were ending the fall, it's like, all right, my man, you got 87 days, to figure this out. And comes from a baseball family, as you guys know. And, he's up in Monroe, and Taylor Young, who's a really good player at Louisiana Tech's up there training and working with him, over this Christmas break. And so super serious about it, which it might help us open up some options of getting some different guys like Ethan Fry, help him get a better path to the field. Jake Brown, as we mentioned, Mac Bing, Paxton Kling, Zeb Riddell, might allow us to utilize our roster and our bench a little bit better. So we're going to see where we get to, but he's going to have to get to the point where he can do it, like Gavin did last year. And when you start looking at that paved the way for Josh to have playing time, for Braden Jobert to have playing time, for Paxton Kling to have playing time, and it paid off. And just the way the game is moved now, and especially in the SEC where all these fields are really small, you got to have a good offense in there. And so we'll see how it goes, but I'm pretty optimistic right now. And we got some good young players that can play that position too that I'm really excited about. So we might be creative with, how we structure the games and stuff like that, and, utilizing guys for spurts. And I'm excited to see how it all plays out.
Nice. Coach, you're admittedly a very, very big college baseball fan. I mean, college baseball. I hope you're a college baseball fan.
Yeah.
College football fan. Obviously we go through, LSU and college football is, football's king down here outside of baseball.
That's great to say you put yourself right. You stepped right in it.
When it's not baseball season, my whole point asking these questions is
Coach,
watching what Jaden Daniels did and watching him have the season that he had, the Heisman trophies this weekend. I think I know your answer, but
he's got a West Coast bias.
West Coast. Yeah, you're a West Coast guy. I don't know.
It was Arizona. Well, he was at Arizona State. They had to see him a couple times a year.
I don't know. How impressive has his season been? And as a coach, seeing high-level athletes and being around high-level athletes, to be able to make that jump what he did from last year to this year, how impressive is that, and how hard is that to do?
Yeah, super impressive. I was not surprised at all. He's a terrific athlete. He's the Heisman Trophy winner, no doubt. No, there's no question about this thing. I mean, who won it last year? Caleb Williams, I think.
Yeah,
with 3 losses.
Yeah, I mean, and the stats aren't even close.
Right.
And the competition that we play, I am convinced of this. Our football team is no worse than the 5th or 6th best team in all of college football. I'm absolutely convinced of that.
Yep.
Just the schedule that we played is really tough, and I mean he just absolutely shredded it. And I mean, if a game was off to a slow start, you might go, oh, maybe this is the week. And there was never the week. There was never a hiccup. It was like, Dylan Cruz last year. I mean, he's in 502 on May 8th,
Right.
or something like that. Man, well, it's cool to see. I mean, he's going to win the Heisman. I saw something like he might go in the top 10 picks in the draft, and that's a good lesson for a lot of athletes. I mean, that's 5 years of college and playing time. Development happens at different times, but man, he was sure fun to watch out there every Saturday night.
Coach, we're glad to see you finally got that so-called SEC bias. That's what they say.
Yeah, they say we have an SEC bias. I don't know if it's a bias. You can't call it a bias when they keep getting drafted the most. You have most players drafted.
All these championships in the conference. Yeah,
it's a little hard to be biased when everybody's doing it.
Well, the best player is the best player.
No doubt.
It's really that simple.
Good against the best competition. And Coach is another advocate for LSU in the transfer portal, which is a message that seems to bode well for LSU baseball as well.
Yeah, I mean,
why wouldn't you want to come to LSU?
Paul Skeens, Thatcher Hurd, Tommy White. Let's keep them rolling.
Let's keep them rolling. Coach, you got a few guys in the portal this year that hopefully make a big impact. Looking forward to talking more with you throughout the course of the season. Always enjoy having you on the show. We appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of your week, and see you later.
All right. You guys have a good Christmas.
You too.
Yes.